The alien vampire whispered, "You're beautiful," and the human could only stand frozen. The encounter. In the perpetually twilight metropolis of Lumina, where holographic advertisements painted the rain in kaleidoscopic hues and gravity fluctuated depending on the district's tax bracket, Dominic Van Thorn stood beneath a flickering street lamp. The light buzzed with electrical complaints, occasionally throwing his sharp features into stark relief before submerging them back into comfortable shadow. Dominic hadn't blinked in nearly 3 centuries. When one had witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the tedious human habit seemed unnecessary. His eyes, dark as interstellar space with flecks of crimson that appeared and vanished like dying stars, surveyed the rain-slicked street with practiced disinterest. His coat, a relic from an era when garments were crafted by hand rather than molecular assemblers, shifted with a whisper of expensive fabric. The collar was turned up against the rain, though the weather didn't bother him. It was merely an aesthetic choice, part of the carefully cultivated image he maintained. Dominic didn't technically need to breathe either, but he maintained the pretense out of habit. Vampires had certain standards to uphold, after all. He exhaled, watching his breath crystallize in the chilly night air, a reminder of the warmth he no longer possessed. Tonight was supposed to be routine, patrol the lower districts, perhaps find a deserving meal among the corporate embezzlers or black market organ traders that frequented this part of Lumina. He preferred his sustenance earned through karmic balance. The blood of the morally bankrupt tasted sweeter. The night, however, had other plans. He sensed the anomaly before he saw it, a peculiar shift in the atmospheric pressure, as if reality itself were holding its breath. The air seemed to fold inward, creating a pocket of impossibly still silence amid the city's perpetual noise. Dominic turned, his movements deliberate and fluid. Not from fear. Fear was a luxury for those with beating hearts and finite lifespans, but from something rarely experienced in his long existence: genuine curiosity. The woman who stepped through this pocket of altered reality moved with the grace of someone accustomed to different gravitational conditions. Her boots seemed to hesitate before fully committing to the ground, as if negotiating with gravity rather than surrendering to it. She wore what appeared to be armor, though unlike any Dominic had encountered. It rippled with subtle iridescence, somehow both metallic and organic, deflecting raindrops before they could make contact. The technology was beyond anything available in Lumina, even in the highest echelons of the corporate spires. Her skin possessed an opalescent quality, not vampire pale, but something altogether different, as if she had been formed beneath the light of unfamiliar stars. Most striking were her ears, elegantly elongated and tapering to points that curved gently backward, occasionally twitching as if receiving signals from the surrounding environment. She stopped precisely 12 feet away from him, tilted her head at a curious angle, and spoke in a voice that resonated with harmonic undertones. "You look beautiful today." Dominic remained perfectly still. Externally, he was a statue carved from marble and midnight. Internally, his carefully ordered thoughts scattered like startled birds. The compliment, delivered with such casual sincerity, had short-circuited something fundamental in his ancient neural pathways, not in the way sunlight or wooden stakes threatened his existence, but in a manner far more insidious. It was unexpected, genuine, and therefore dangerous. No one had ever said such a thing to him before. Not like that. Not without the tremor of fear or the calculation of manipulation. "Are you attempting an unusual form of suicide?" Dominic finally asked, his voice carrying the faint echo of long-forgotten aristocratic inflections. The woman blinked, a slow, deliberate movement. "No, just making an observation." Dominic took a half-step backward, a movement equivalent to a normal person throwing themselves to the ground in shock. "Who sent you?" "I sent myself," she replied. "I'm Naira, xenocultural researcher from the Tellurian Star Collective." She gestured vaguely upward, or what you might call space. "A space elf," Dominic said flatly. "That's reductive, but not entirely inaccurate." Her mouth curved into a smile that suggested she found his categorization amusing rather than offensive. Dominic noticed her studying him with unabashed interest, her gaze analytical, yet somehow warm. It was disconcerting to be observed without the usual undercurrent of terror he inspired. "What brings a xenocultural researcher to Lumina?" he asked, maintaining his composure despite his unease. "You do," Naira replied simply. She reached into a compartment in her armor and removed a small crystalline device. When activated, It projected a holographic display between them, a detailed record of incidents across Lumina, each bearing his unmistakable signature. 347 confirmed instances of your unique ability, she continued. You render threats immobile with nothing but your presence. Some never regain mobility. It's an extraordinary talent. Dominic raised an eyebrow. So you approached a predator you've been stalking to? Compliment him? I'm experimenting with first contact protocols, Naira said, her expression brightening. And it worked magnificently. You completely froze. He hated that she was right. Centuries of carefully cultivated intimidation undone by a simple, unexpected kindness. What do you want from me? He asked, his voice lowering to a dangerous register that typically preceded violence. Naira appeared utterly unaffected by his implied threat. Coffee, to start with. She gestured down the street. There's an establishment 3 blocks from here. The gravitational fluctuations are inconsistent, but I'm told the barista has perfect pitch. You came from another solar system to invite me for coffee? No, she clarified. I came to study you. The coffee is just a convenient social framework for initial data collection. Despite himself, Dominic felt the unfamiliar tug of amusement. It had been decades since anyone had surprised him this thoroughly. And if I decline, then I'll adapt my research methodology, Naira said with a shrug. But I think you'll accept. Why would you assume that? Because, she said, her eyes reflecting the neon glow of the city. In 300 years, no one has ever called you beautiful and meant it. Aren't you curious about what else I might say? Dominic remained silent, his expression unreadable. The rain continued to fall around them, creating a shimmering curtain of light and shadow. Fine, he finally said, the word barely audible above the ambient noise of the city. 1 hour. For research purposes. Naira smiled, and Dominic noticed with mild alarm that the nearby street lamps brightened slightly in response. Excellent, she said. And don't worry, I won't ask you personal questions about your feeding habits until at least the second meeting. As she turned to lead the way, Dominic followed, maintaining a careful distance. He told himself it was merely to satisfy his curiosity about this strange visitor from beyond the stars. It certainly wasn't because she had really looked at him, and seen something worth studying rather than fearing. The night suddenly felt different, charged with possibilities he hadn't considered in centuries. As they walked through the rain-slicked streets of Lumina, beneath advertisements selling synthetic emotions and designer memories, Dominic realized with growing unease that he might be in danger after all. Not from stakes or sunlight, but from something far more perilous to a creature of darkness, the unexpected promise of connection. Resonance. The cafe Quantum Grounds defied conventional architecture, clinging to the underside of a decommissioned monorail bridge. Its entrance flickered between visibility and translucence, depending on the angle of approach. The sign, spelled out in deprecated code fragments, read, "We serve probability, not certainty." Dominic grimaced at the establishment's deliberately quirky aesthetic. Inside, the barista, a synthetic being with an unnecessary mustache module and far too many emotional subroutines, played melancholy tunes on an antique synthesizer. The music sounded like mathematics having an existential crisis. What's your assessment? Naira asked, sliding into a booth that adjusted its molecular structure to accommodate her unique physiology. Pretentious, Dominic replied, remaining standing. Centuries of existence had given him an aversion to sitting in public spaces. I meant of me, Naira clarified, her elongated ears twitching with what he now recognized as amusement. You've been analyzing me since we met. The barista floated over, hovering exactly 3 inches above the floor. What will you have? It asked, its voice modulating between baritone and soprano. Your most average coffee, Naira requested. 1 existential medium roast, molecular stability guaranteed for 30 minutes. The barista confirmed, then turned expectantly to Dominic. Nothing is our specialty, the barista replied cheerfully, producing a completely empty cup from its apron pocket. Enjoy the void. Dominic accepted the cup with visible disdain, placing it on the table where it somehow looked both meaningfully and pretentiously empty. Naira received her drink, which shimmered with potential flavor configurations. From beneath the delicate ridge of her jawline, a thin, semi-translucent filter extended to sample the liquid. A nearby patron gasped, dropped their pastry, and hurried out. Does that happen often? Dominic asked, gesturing to the departing customer. Gilfiltration systems aren't common on this planet, Naira acknowledged, the apparatus retracting seamlessly into her skin. You didn't answer my question. You're invasive, Dominic responded. Technologically advanced but socially obtuse. Dangerously curious. Thank you, she said, appearing genuinely pleased. It wasn't a compliment. Perspective is relative. Her eyes, violet with concentric rings that occasionally rotated like astronomical instruments, focused on him with unnerving precision. You feed on fear, yet you're alone. Most predators form social hierarchies. I'm not most predators. Precisely why I'm here. She leaned forward, the lights of the cafe reflecting off her armor in patterns that shouldn't have been mathematically possible. There are 17,412 documented predatory species in the Galactic catalog. None quite like you. I'm flattered, Dominic said flatly. No, you're uncomfortable, Naira corrected. Your discomfort manifests as increased sarcasm and micro-expressions of irritation around your left eyebrow. Dominic consciously stilled his facial muscles. Are you always this analytical? I'm actually being quite casual. On Telluria, this would be considered flirtatious banter. A nearby table of mechanical philosophy students turned to stare. One of them began recording the conversation, its optical sensors dilating with academic interest. Stop recording, Dominic said, his voice dropping to a frequency that interfered with electronic systems. The student's recording device emitted a mournful whine before powering down. Fascinating, Naira murmured. Vocal manipulation of electronic frequencies. Is that an extension of your immobilization ability? No. He didn't elaborate. Let her wonder. Outside, Lumina's perpetual twilight deepened momentarily as the citywide mood regulation system adjusted to accommodate a scheduled melancholy interval. The cafe lights dimmed in response, and patrons collectively sighed with artificial wistfulness. Your city has emotional weather, Naira observed. On Telluria, manipulating communal emotional states would be considered highly unethical. Ethics are flexible in Lumina, Dominic replied. Especially in the lower districts. Yet you have a code, she noted. You feed selectively. On those you deem deserving. Dominic's eyes narrowed. You've been watching me for longer than you've admitted. 63 planetary rotations, Naira confirmed without a hint of remorse. Your hunting patterns are fascinating. You orbit corporate criminals like a specialized predator. I have preferences. You have principles, she countered. Rare for a being who could easily overpower any defense system in this city. The conversation paused as the barista returned, placing a small atmospheric destabilizer on their table. Complimentary existential crisis, it announced. Today's flavor is profound doubt with hints of cosmic insignificance. After it departed, Naira activated the device with a casual touch. A tiny storm cloud formed above their table, raining microscopic droplets of scented philosophy. Is this supposed to enhance the experience? Dominic asked, watching a droplet evaporate before it could touch his sleeve. It's atmospheric, Naira said, with what might have been her species' version of a wink. Now, tell me about your immobilization ability. The physiological mechanics are particularly intriguing. You first, Dominic countered. What exactly does a xenocultural researcher do, besides harassing local predators? Naira's expression brightened. I study unique manifestations of consciousness across cosmic boundaries, particularly those that defy standardized categorization. Like vampires. Like you, she corrected. Most vampiric species documented in the Galactic archive are merely specialized hemophages. You're something else entirely. And what am I, according to your research? Naira took another sip of her continuously reconfiguring coffee. A quantum anomaly with fangs and excellent fashion sense. Despite himself, Dominic felt the unfamiliar pressure of amusement building in his chest. The sensation was foreign enough that he nearly mistook it for indigestion. You find me amusing, Naira observed. I find you peculiar, he countered. The distinction is negligible. She activated another function on her crystalline device, and a holographic display materialized between them. This is your emotional signature, captured when we first met. The display showed what appeared to be a complex waveform, oscillating in patterns that somehow seemed both familiar and alien to Dominic. Spikes of crimson and indigo pulsed through the projection, occasionally forming intricate geometric shapes before dissolving back into chaos. Emotional signatures aren't visible, he stated. Not to you, Naira agreed. My species evolved to perceive quantum emotional states. Your technology isn't advanced enough yet to replicate the ability. How convenient for your research. It is, she agreed, missing or ignoring his sarcasm. What's particularly interesting is this pattern here. She indicated a recurring spiral formation within the display. It's remarkably similar to the Tellurian resonance theorem, a mathematical model of conscious evolution. You're saying I'm evolving? I'm saying you're capable of it, Naira clarified. Most beings solidify their neural patterns after centuries of existence. Yours remain, adaptive. Outside, the city's lighting shifted again, this time to a vibrant indigo that suggested either impending optimism or scheduled civic pride. Time's up, Dominic announced, rising from his seat. Their agreed hour had passed, and while the conversation had been unexpectedly stimulating, he had no intention of extending it. Naira didn't protest. She simply deactivated her device and finished her coffee with a final, decisive sip. Same time tomorrow, she asked, as if his agreement were a foregone conclusion. I don't make habits of interacting with researchers. Yet you will, she said confidently. Because in 300 years, no one has ever looked at you and seen data worth collecting rather than blood worth draining. Once again, Dominic found himself momentarily speechless. The accuracy of her assessment was irritating. Perhaps, he finally conceded. If I have nothing better to do. Naira smiled, revealing teeth that were just slightly too perfect to be human. Until tomorrow, then. Try not to immobilize anyone important. As she departed, the cafe's lighting adjusted to her movement, creating what appeared to be a subtle spotlight effect. The barista's synthesizer played a farewell tune that sounded suspiciously like a romantic interlude. Dominic remained behind momentarily, examining the empty cup the barista had given him. Somehow, staring into its deliberate void felt less profound than it had an hour ago. Outside, Lumina continued its perpetual cycle of manufactured moods and commodified consciousness. Holographic advertisements offered emotional upgrades and designer dreams to passersby. For the first time in decades, Dominic realized he was experiencing something genuine rather than programmed, a sensation he had long believed beyond his capacity. It was curiosity, mingled with the faint electrical spark of anticipation. As he stepped back into the neon-drenched streets, he found himself calculating the hours until same time tomorrow with inexplicable precision, and wondering what questions the strange visitor from beyond the stars might ask next, and whether he might, against all logic and self-preservation, actually answer them honestly.